This church was founded about 1834 by the Baring family, Charles and Susan Baring, who were the owners of Flat Rock. They built it as a summer chapel for them to come to, just for their own use. And it was given to the Episcopal diocese in 1836. The church was used in the summer months by the Charlestonians and others who stayed in Flat Rock during the summers. So it was only open in the summer. Was not a year-round church. It did not open as a permanent year-round church until 1961. There are pamphlets in the church vestibule on the history of the church. You can open the door, and there's a pamphlet on the history of the church, and there's a pamphlet for a self-guided tour of the cemetery. They asked for a 25-cent donation. This section of the cemetery down there where you see the white crosses are all slave graves of the Charlestonian plantation owners.
It's like a drop off on the side of the road.
No, those crosses were recently erected. They were just plain unmarked field stones.
Are the field stones still there?
I doubt it. Wherever there was a small unmarked little field stone, recently in the latter half of the 20th century, they put up the white crosses. Okay? Huh?
The congregation decorates.
Yeah.
Christmas
And this thing of this proper little thing that they have in all these websites and printed materials, that they were servants. Well, I'm not going to say the word that I would really like to say to that. They were slaves. They were not servants. They were slaves. They're trying to make that sound nice.
Wasn't Susan the frisky one?
Yes.
Okay,
the courtesan. Those of you who haven't got there in this current class, you'll find out. These people, some of these people buried in this cemetery, owned 1,000 slaves or more in South Carolina. So what I'm going to tell you is this. The history of the Charlestonians in Flat Rock is the history of the state of South Carolina, all the way back prior to the Revolutionary War, all the way, some of them back to colonial days. It is the history of the state of South Carolina. It is the history of the city of Charleston and Georgetown. It is the history of the biggest plantation owners in South Carolina, and it is the history of the largest slave owners in South Carolina. Okay? Buried in the cemetery in the back are the grave sites of Louise Howe Bailey, who I've recommended you buy her, read her books. A wonderful writer. It's also Mitchell King's family, his descendants. He himself is not buried there, but a lot of his descendants are buried there. Frank Fitzsimmons is buried there, the author of From the Banks of the Ocklawaha. And some of these Charlestonians we've talked about, like Andrew Johnstone, Christopher Gustavus Miminger, who was the Secretary of the Treasury for the Confederate States of America, is buried there. There's a Rutledge plot with Edward Rutledge and Henry Middleton Rutledge. There's a lot of Trenholms buried there, with Edward Trenholm being one of them. Charles de Choiseul and his mother and sisters are buried there that developed Chanelou. Theodore G. Barker, who bought Brookland and began that first subdivision called Barker Heights in Henderson County, and so he's buried here. The Farmer family, Henry T. Farmer, and his family that owned the Woodfield Inn have plots there. The Reverend John Drayton and the Drayton family, I believe, I could be incorrect about this, but I believe they, I think is it Magnolia Gardens down in Charleston? One of those huge plantations down there. The Elliott family, the Lowndes family, the Middleton families, all of whom owned huge plantations in South Carolina. There's a memorial stone for Charles Purcell Cecil, who died in World War II. He was a Rear Admiral in the Navy. He received the Navy Cross, the Gold Star, the Bronze Star. He was killed July 31st, 1944 in the crash of a Navy transport plane while taking off from an island in the Pacific. His actual burial site is at Arlington National Cemetery, but there is a memorial stone for him here. He was a resident and a descendant of these Charlestonians and a resident of Charleston, but he had a summer home up here, like they all had summer homes. The USS Charles B. Cecil was named after him. Now, Charles and Susan Baring are buried underneath the church. So if you go in the church, I think it tells you somewhere in there where their graves are underneath the actual church itself. Before we leave and go to Connemara, we all need to gather back down near the cars. So I can't remember what time I gave. I mean, I'm going to give you time to go through this church and go through that cemetery, and like I said, that's the slave section there.
Sergeant, sir.
You okay?
That's the carriage step over there.
We just get through fast.
He's looking at the tree. She's gonna move it.
I think so, yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Did they die here?
Yeah, they were both gone. And you know, Henry Middleton Rutledge, his son's a court lawyer in South Carolina. South Carolina. You know him down in that. And I know Suzanne is doing research. Where's Suzanne?
We've lost.
Suzanne's the historian, was director of the Mountain Heritage Center at Western Carolina University, and she's currently doing research on some of these people for the city of Charleston. Campsie.
Yeah, well, I talked to her.
All right. I need to talk to everybody about Connemara. You're going to go to that stop sign, you're going to turn right. Almost everybody knows where it's at, but for those who are new to the area and don't, you go to the red light in front of the Flat Rock Playhouse. You're going to turn right on Little River Road, and you're going to make an immediate left sort of into the parking lot at Connemara. I have been in discussions all week with the park rangers. That parking lot is very small. So if there are no parking spaces, you can park over to the right in the Flat Rock Playhouse parking area. All right? If anybody has walking issues, you're going to have to go down to the service road on the left. I wrote it in your directions. Keep your directions for those who need to do that. And it tells you where to turn left. There's a call box where you got to call the park ranger. Let them know so they can open the gate, and you can let off the person with walking difficulties there in front of the house. The park ranger will meet you, and then you have to go park your car at the barn area. If anyone has to do that, they only have 3 parking places at the barn area. So you may have to come back out and park somewhere and then go back and get that other person. Everybody clear on that? It takes at least 10 minutes to walk from the parking lot to the Carl Sandburg home. I'm only giving you time, this group time, for 2 tours. Each tour is 30 minutes. They only allow 15 people on the tour. If you have been in that house before, please do not take that tour. How many of you want to take the tour? Because I can't have more than 30 people. 7, 8, 9, 10. We're fine. So we're fine. If you haven't taken you're more than welcome to take the tour if you haven't. And I'm told them we'd do 30 minutes, okay? So the first 15 to get up there, the first 15 to go on it.
That's a good way to do it.
Fastest walkers are the rest of you. When you get up there, see if the tour started, if you want to take the tour. If they tell you you have to wait for the next tour, go see the goats or something and come back when they tell you to come back. Everybody clear on that? The rest of us that are not taking the tour can wander around. You can walk around the grounds. You can go see the goats. You can go over to the Flat Rock Playhouse and look at the big flat rock that you can see exposed up there. You can even hike to the top of Glassy and back if you're a fast and good hiker. You could do it in an hour. But if you're not a fast, good hiker, I wouldn't recommend you doing it because you might not get back to the parking lot. But at the top of Glassy is where the Potts family had homes and where Roger Richardson Hill, who's one of the big railroad giants from Minnesota with the Great Northern Pacific Railroad, he put his tomb up there on top of Glassy Mountain.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So,
Who's in that tomb?
Roger Richardson Hill.
Okay.
He's not from here. He's not one of our local hills.
He used to come up here and camp or something.
He's a hill from up in the northern Midwest, and he was one of the owners of the Northern Railroad that they put up to the Pacific, you know, up through Minnesota and up in that area.
The Great Northern.
He's originally from up in that area. That's where he lived. He got tuberculosis, and the doctors sent him down here to these TB places. He put him a cabin up on top of Glassy and spent summers and things up there trying to cure his TB. And then when he died, he put in a trust fund to be buried up there.